Story disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction and is intended for entertainment purposes only. The content includes dark themes, horror elements, and fictional depictions of rituals and sacrifices that are purely imaginative and not reflective of any real-life practices or beliefs. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is not suitable for younger audiences, and parental guidance is recommended. The story does not endorse or promote any harmful behavior, violence, or dangerous activities. Please note that all characters, events, and settings are entirely fictional and created for the purpose of storytelling. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental. In this gripping episode, Nyanya is thrust into relentless darkness and horror as the cult's final acts of desperation unleash ancient, malevolent forces upon the village. From grotesque rituals and the awakening of demonic entities to the haunting of once revered elders and the manipulation of a demonic pact, Zola and Nia must confront nightmares both supernatural and psychological. Their battles push them to their limits, navigating treacherous dimensions, shadowy curses, and malevolent spirits that twist reality itself. As they fight to save their home, the cost of victory grows ever higher, and even as the darkness retreats, Nyanya is forever scarred. Will hope ever truly prevail, or has the village's soul been irreversibly tainted by the shadows? As the cult's influence wanes, the remaining members become increasingly desperate. Their rituals grow more frantic and horrifying, driven by their fear of losing their power forever. They seek to perform one final, catastrophic ritual known as the Harvest of Souls. The Harvest of Souls is a ritual intended to draw upon the collective anguish of the village and use it to summon a powerful, ancient demon known as the Devourer of Souls. This demon is said to be capable of consuming entire populations and spreading darkness across the land. The cultists prepare for the ritual by capturing villagers and binding them in a horrific ceremony. The captured individuals are subjected to intense psychological and physical torment, their fear and suffering used to fuel the dark magic required for the summoning. The ritual takes place in a vast underground cavern, filled with symbols and runes drawn in blood. The air is thick with a stifling, oppressive darkness, and the cavern echoes with the cries of the tortured. The cultists, now completely consumed by their madness, perform the ritual with a sense of frenzied desperation. The scene is grotesque and chilling. The villagers, their spirits nearly broken, are forced to witness the ritual as their anguish is harvested to summon the devourer. The demon's presence begins to manifest as a swirling vortex of darkness and terror. Its form is an amorphous, writhing mass of shadow, with countless eyes and mouths that seem to hunger for the souls of the living. Zola and Nia, having discovered the cult's latest scheme, infiltrate the cavern just as the ritual reaches its climax. The confrontation is fierce and chaotic, with the devourer's dark magic overwhelming the environment. The cavern becomes a nightmarish battleground, with the demon's influence warping reality and causing havoc. The battle against the Devourer of Souls is intense and harrowing. Zola and Nia must navigate the chaos, fighting both the cultists and the demonic entity. The scene is filled with dark magic and supernatural forces, as the demon's power threatens to consume everything in its path. In a desperate final effort, Zola and Nia use every ounce of their strength and knowledge to counter the ritual and banish the Devourer. The climax of the battle sees the demon being dragged back into the abyss, its screams of rage echoing through the cavern. The cultists, defeated and broken, are left in disarray. The defeat of the Devourer of Souls leaves the cult in a state of disarray and desperation. With their most powerful demon banished and their rituals failing, the cultists begin to fracture and turn on each other. Asha, now completely consumed by madness, becomes a danger to everyone around her. In her delusional state, Asha seeks to awaken an even darker force, the Shadow Queen, an ancient and malevolent spirit said to be capable of bending reality to her will. The Shadow Queen's power is legendary, and her influence is feared across the realms. The cultists, driven by Asha's madness and their own desperation, prepare for the ritual to summon the Shadow Queen. The ceremony takes place in an abandoned, subterranean temple filled with ancient, forbidden texts and dark artifacts. The temple is a grotesque place, with walls covered in blood-red symbols and dark runes. Asha performs the ritual with a disturbing mix of reverence and desperation. The ceremony involves the use of rare and horrific ingredients, including the blood of sacrificed animals and the ashes of cursed relics. The air is thick with dark energy, and the ground trembles with the presence of the Shadow Queen. As the ritual progresses, the temple becomes a nightmarish domain. The Shadow Queen's influence begins to warp reality, causing shadows to come alive and dark spirits to manifest. The cultists, now completely under her control, become twisted and malevolent, their actions driven by the Queen's will. Zola and Nia, having discovered the cult's latest scheme, infiltrate the temple and confront Asha and the cultists. The scene is both terrifying and surreal, with shadows twisting into nightmarish forms and the very fabric of reality being distorted by the Shadow Queen's presence. The battle against the Shadow Queen is intense and horrifying. Zola and Nia must navigate the shifting, dark landscape of the temple, battling both the cultists and the malevolent spirits summoned by the Queen. The confrontation is a struggle of wills and dark magic, with the Shadow Queen's power threatening to overwhelm them. In a final, desperate effort, Zola and Nia use their knowledge of ancient magic to counter the ritual and banish the Shadow Queen. The climax of the battle sees the Queen being dragged back into her realm, her rage and despair echoing through the temple. The cultists, now leaderless and broken, are left to face the consequences of their actions. The cult of Nyanya, in their desperation, begins to deteriorate into chaos. Asha, their new leader, is unhinged and driven by an insatiable thirst for power. As their influence wanes, the cultists resort to increasingly extreme measures to reclaim their dominance. They turn to the darkest corners of their knowledge to perform a ritual of horrifying magnitude. In a secluded, subterranean chamber beneath a forsaken shrine, the air is thick with dread. The walls are adorned with macabre symbols and remnants of previous ceremonies, bloodied runes and animal bones. The altar, a grotesque monument to their depravity, is stained with the blood of countless sacrifices. The ritual of blood and shadows is intended to summon a powerful demon that can restore their lost strength. The cultists, frenzied and desperate, gather around the altar, their eyes wild with anticipation. They chant in a guttural, ancient language as they draw intricate patterns in blood upon the floor. The sacrifices are bound and terrified, their faces etched with a mixture of horror and resignation. They are chosen not only for their lives but for their emotional suffering, as the cult believes that agony amplifies the potency of their dark magic. The cultists, driven by their bloodlust, revel in the fear and pain of their victims. The ritual reaches its climax when the cultists perform a series of brutal sacrifices. The noise of the animals echo through the chamber as their blood is collected in sacred vessels and used to power the summoning. The blood is not just a tool but a symbol of the cult's unrelenting desire for dominance and power. As the final sacrifice is made, the chamber fills with a malevolent darkness. Shadows twist and writhe as a hideous entity begins to manifest, a grotesque amalgamation of darkness and malevolence. The entity, a nightmarish demon with eyes that burn like coals and tendrils that writhe with malevolent intent, reemerges from the abyss. Zola and Nia, having tracked the cult's activities, arrive at the chamber. They are met with the horrifying sight of the ritual in progress, the blood-soaked altar, the twisted symbols, and the demonic entity emerging from the darkness. The scene is both grotesque and surreal, as the cultists' desperation and bloodlust have unleashed a force beyond their control. A fierce battle ensues as Zola and Nia confront the cultists and the demon. The chamber becomes a chaotic battleground, with dark magic and demonic forces clashing violently. The cultists, driven mad by their thirst for power, attack with reckless abandon, their eyes wild with fanaticism. In the climax of the battle, Zola and Nia manage to disrupt the ritual and banish the demon. The entity is dragged back into the abyss, its roars of rage echoing through the chamber. The cultists, defeated and broken, are left in disarray, their once mighty power now reduced to a smoldering ruin. The village of Nyanya, though relieved from immediate danger, is plagued by a lingering sense of dread. The horrors inflicted by the cult have left deep psychological scars, and whispers of darkness still permeate the air. Unseen forces seem to stir in the shadows, and the villagers are plagued by unsettling visions and nightmares. In the dead of night, the blood moon rises over the village, casting an eerie, crimson light that bathes the land in an otherworldly glow. The villagers, already on edge, are further disturbed by the moon's unnatural brilliance. It seems as though the very sky is a harbinger of more sinister events to come. The blood moon's rise awakens something ancient and malevolent buried deep beneath the village. In the underground labyrinths previously used by the cult, dark energy begins to stir. Forgotten rituals and dark magic from the cult's past reawaken, seeping into the village's surroundings and corrupting everything it touches. A series of grotesque and horrifying phenomena begin to occur. The ground cracks open, revealing hidden crypts filled with ancient, decayed animal bones. These animals, once victims of forgotten rites, are reanimated by the blood moon's power. They rise as ghastly, skeletal figures, their eyes glowing with a baleful light. The undead rise from the earth, their movements jerky and unnatural. They wander the village, seeking out the living to feed on their fear and despair. The villagers, caught off guard by this new terror, find themselves besieged by the undead horde. The night is filled with screams and chaos as the village's defenses crumble under the onslaught. Zola and Nia, drawn by the renewed surge of dark magic, return to the village to confront the new threat. They find themselves in a nightmarish landscape where the boundaries between the living and the dead are blurred. The village's familiar streets are now a battleground of horror, with the undead wreaking havoc and spreading terror. The battle against the undead is both physically and psychologically draining. Zola and Nia face not only the physical threat of the reanimated animals but also the mental strain of witnessing the villagers' suffering. The undead are relentless, their attacks driven by a malevolent force that seems to feed off the fear it generates. In a desperate bid to save the village, Zola and Nia seek out the source of the dark energy. They discover an ancient, hidden chamber beneath the village square, a place where the cult had performed their most vile rituals. The chamber is filled with dark relics and cursed objects, their malevolent energy still potent. Zola and Nia must navigate a treacherous labyrinth of traps and dark magic to reach the source of the corruption. The chamber's walls seem to close in on them, and the very air is thick with a suffocating darkness. At the heart of the chamber, Zola and Nia confront a dark spirit that has been awakened by the blood moon. The spirit, a grotesque entity of pure malevolence, is the source of the undead plague. The battle is intense and grueling, with Zola and Nia using all their strength and cunning to combat the spirit and its minions. It ends with a narrow victory as the dark spirit is banished, and the undead are returned to their graves. However, the village is left in a state of ruin, and the scars of the blood moon's legacy remain. The survivors are left to rebuild and recover, knowing that the darkness is never truly gone. As the village begins to recover from the blood moon's horrors, a new and insidious threat emerges. A mysterious stranger arrives in Nyanya, claiming to offer a solution to the village's woes. The stranger, an enigmatic figure draped in dark robes, presents himself as a savior, promising to lift the curse that still lingers over the land. The stranger, who goes by the name of Obesai, offers to perform a cleansing ritual that will rid the village of the residual dark magic. The villagers, desperate for relief and unaware of the true nature of Obesai's intentions, eagerly accept his offer. They are willing to believe that any means of salvation is worth the risk. Obesai begins his ritual in the heart of the village, performing complex and arcane ceremonies that seem to momentarily calm the lingering darkness. However, as the ritual progresses, it becomes clear that there is something deeply unsettling about Obesai's methods. His magic is potent but carries an air of malevolence, and his rituals seem to invoke an unsettling sense of foreboding. Unbeknownst to the villagers, Obesai is a dark sorcerer with his own sinister agenda. His ritual is not intended to cleanse the village but to bind it to a cursed pact that will grant him immense power. The pact involves a series of sacrifices and dark rites that will enslave the villagers' souls to his will. As the ritual reaches its climax, the true nature of Obesai's intentions is revealed. The villagers are bound by magical chains, their souls tethered to the dark sorcerer's will. Obesai performs a blood sacrifice, using the life force of goats to seal the pact. The goats' noise echo through the village as the dark magic binds the villagers in an unbreakable chain of servitude. Zola and Nia, sensing the malevolent magic, return to the village to investigate the new threat. They discover the true nature of Obesai's ritual and the cursed pact that he has imposed upon the villagers. The village is now a realm of shadows and despair, its inhabitants bound to a dark force beyond their control. The battle against Obesai is both physically and mentally taxing. Zola and Nia must confront the dark sorcerer and break the cursed pact before the villagers' souls are irrevocably damned. The confrontation takes place in a nightmarish dimension created by Obesai's dark magic, a realm where the very fabric of reality is twisted and corrupted. The battle is intense and fraught with peril, as Obesai uses every dark trick at his disposal to maintain his control. With a desperate and dramatic showdown, Zola and Nia manage to break the pact and banish Obesai, but not before the village suffers further devastation. The village, though freed from Obesai's cursed pact, is now engulfed in an even more terrifying nightmare. The dark sorcery unleashed by Obesai's ritual has triggered a new and horrifying phenomenon, an eternal night that blankets Nyanya in unending darkness. The sun does not rise, and the village is trapped in a perpetual state of twilight. The eternal night brings with it a host of new horrors. The darkness is not merely a physical absence of light but a manifestation of malevolent forces that prey on the villagers' deepest fears. The shadows become living entities, creeping and slithering through the village, their presence marked by an unsettling chill. The villagers are plagued by nightmarish visions and hallucinations. The eternal night amplifies their fears, turning the village into a realm of pure terror. People begin to disappear, swallowed by the darkness, and strange, haunting whispers fill the air. The once familiar village now seems like a twisted, alien landscape where the laws of reality no longer apply. Zola and Nia, determined to uncover the source of the eternal night, delve into ancient texts and forgotten lore. They discover that the darkness is a form of ancient curse, one that was originally sealed away by a powerful guardian spirit. The curse was inadvertently released by Obesai's ritual, and the only way to reverse it is to seek out and appease the guardian spirit. Their quest leads them to a forgotten, subterranean sanctuary, a hidden realm where the guardian spirit resides. The sanctuary is a place of profound darkness, its very essence a swirling maelstrom of shadow and despair. The guardian spirit, a being of immense power and malevolence, is both a force of creation and destruction. In their encounter with the guardian spirit, Zola and Nia must navigate a treacherous maze of illusions and nightmares. The spirit's realm is a shifting landscape of fear, with shifting shadows and disturbing visions that test their resolve. The battle against the spirit is both physical and psychological, as they confront their own deepest fears and insecurities. The climax of the chapter involves a harrowing confrontation with the guardian spirit. Zola and Nia must use their wits and courage to appease the spirit and reverse the curse. The battle is intense and fraught with danger, as the eternal night's horrors are unleashed in full force. With the eternal night lifted, the village begins to recover, but the peace is short-lived. A new, even more horrifying threat emerges as remnants of the cult of Nyanya regroup and seek revenge. They are led by a figure known only as the Devil's Harvest, a powerful and enigmatic sorcerer who seeks to complete the cult's dark mission. The Devil's Harvest arrives in the village with a new, terrifying agenda. He aims to perform a ritual known as the Harvest of the Damned, the ceremony intended to harvest the souls of the living animals and use them to awaken an ancient, demonic force of unimaginable power. The ritual requires a large number of sacrifices and is performed under a rare celestial alignment that amplifies the dark magic involved. The devil's harvest's arrival is marked by a series of gruesome and unsettling events. Animals begin to disappear, their bodies found in horrific, ritualistic poses. The air becomes thick with a sense of impending doom, and the village is once again plunged into a state of fear and paranoia. Zola and Nia, alerted by the rising dark magic, investigate the new threat. They discover the devil's harvest's plan and realize that the ritual is already underway. The sorcerer has established a new cult stronghold on the outskirts of the village, a place where dark rituals are performed and the harvest of the damned is prepared. The confrontation with the devil's harvest is a terrifying ordeal. The sorcerer's power is immense, and his dark magic is both potent and insidious. The ritual site is a macabre tableau of suffering, with bound captives and ritualistic symbols that evoke a profound sense of horror. Zola and Nia must navigate a series of deadly traps and confront the cultists who serve the devil's harvest. The battle is brutal and unrelenting, as they fight to stop the ritual and save the villagers from becoming part of the harvest of the damned. The climax involves a dramatic and intense showdown with the devil's harvest, as Zola and Nia use every ounce of their strength and cunning to prevent the summoning of the demonic force. As Nyanya struggles to recover from the devil's harvest's defeat, a new, chilling phenomenon begins to spread throughout the village. The remnants of the cult have unleashed an insidious curse that causes the very shadows to come alive, whispering dark secrets and threats to anyone who dares to venture out at night. The shadows take on a life of their own, writhing and slithering across walls and streets. They whisper hauntingly to the villagers, planting seeds of paranoia and fear. The whispers are not just idle threats but manipulative, driving people to the brink of madness. People start to disappear, and when they are found, they look ill with their eyes wide with terror. Zola and Nia investigate the origins of the shadow curse, tracing it back to an ancient artifact stolen from the village's sacred grounds. The artifact, a cursed obsidian mask, was used in rituals by the cult to channel dark spirits. Its theft has allowed the shadows to manifest and wreak havoc. As they delve deeper, they find that the mask is held by a rogue cultist who has taken refuge in an abandoned mansion on the edge of the village. The mansion is a nightmarish labyrinth of decaying rooms and dark magic, its walls adorned with sinister symbols and occult relics. Inside the mansion, Zola and Nia face a series of horrific trials. The shadows in the mansion are alive and hostile, attacking with a vengeance. The walls themselves seem to close in on them, and the very air is thick with a malevolent presence. The rogue cultist, now a twisted figure consumed by dark magic, uses the mask to control the shadows, turning them into deadly weapons. The climax involves a terrifying confrontation with the rogue cultist. The mansion becomes a battleground of shifting shadows and dark magic. Zola and Nia must confront their deepest fears as the shadows take on their worst nightmares. The battle is intense and harrowing, with Zola and Nia fighting not only for their lives but for the sanity of the village. In the end, they manage to reclaim the cursed mask and destroy it, lifting the shadow curse. However, the psychological damage inflicted on the villagers is profound, leaving them with lingering fears and trauma. With the shadow curse lifted, the village turns its attention to a new and equally horrifying threat. The once peaceful river that flows through Nyanya has become a source of terror. The water is now a murky, black liquid, and it exudes a foul, putrid stench. It is rumored to be cursed, and those who drink from it are said to suffer excruciatingly painful illness. The river's curse is linked to an ancient ritual performed by the cult, which involved using the river's waters to trap and corrupt the spirits of the damned. The ritual's effects have turned the river into a conduit for dark energies and malevolent spirits. The villagers are increasingly desperate as the river's curse begins to spread. Crops are failing, and the village's water supply is poisoned. Those who attempt to retrieve water from the river are said to suffer painful illnesses. The river's dark magic is corrupting the land, and the villagers' suffering grows with each passing day. Zola and Nia embark on a perilous journey to cleanse the cursed river. They follow the river's path to its source, a remote and desolate location where the ritual was originally performed. Along the way, they encounter grotesque creatures spawned by the river's corruption, monstrous entities with a hunger for animal raw flesh. At the river's source, Zola and Nia discover a hidden, ancient altar covered in dark runes. The altar is a focal point for the river's curse, and its dark magic is causing the corruption. To cleanse the river, they must perform a counter-ritual to reverse the curse and banish the trapped spirits. The ritual is fraught with danger. The river's dark magic fights back, manifesting as horrific apparitions and vengeful spirits. The battle is both physical and spiritual, as Zola and Nia must contend with the corrupted spirits and the malevolent forces that seek to prevent them from succeeding. In the end, they manage to complete the counter-ritual, purging the river of its curse. The water slowly returns to its natural state, but the scars of the curse remain. The village begins to recover, but the fear and trauma of the river's curse continue to haunt them. As Nyanya rebuilds, a new and insidious threat emerges. The village's elders, once revered and respected, are now haunted by malevolent spirits. These spirits, driven by a vengeful rage, possess the elders and use them to spread fear and chaos throughout the village. The haunting begins subtly, with the elders displaying strange and erratic behavior. They speak in unknown tongues, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. As the haunting intensifies, the elders begin to perform disturbing rituals and spread ominous prophecies that incite panic among the villagers. Zola and Nia, sensing a new dark force at work, investigate the source of the haunting. They discover that the spirits tormenting the elders are the souls of disappeared villagers that are suspected to be held captive by the cult in their dark rituals. These spirits are bound to the village and are seeking revenge on those they hold responsible for their suffering. The spirits are powerful and malevolent, using their influence over the elders to create an atmosphere of fear and distrust. The village is thrown into chaos as the elders' actions become increasingly erratic and dangerous. The once respected leaders are now seen as harbingers of doom, and the villagers are torn between fear and anger. Zola and Nia must confront the spirits and free the elders from their malevolent influence. The confrontation takes place in a haunted temple, where the spirits manifest in their full, terrifying forms. The temple is a place of dark magic and cursed relics, and the spirits use the environment to their advantage. The battle is intense and fraught with peril, as Zola and Nia must not only combat the spirits but also protect the vulnerable elders from harm. The spirits' rage is overwhelming, and the fight is a desperate struggle against forces beyond their control. In the end, Zola and Nia manage to banish the spirits and free the elders from their torment. The village is left in a state of uneasy relief, as the haunting has ended but the scars of the experience remain. The elders must come to terms with their actions under the spirits' influence, and the village must rebuild from the psychological trauma inflicted by the haunting. As the village tries to recover, a new and more sinister threat emerges. A demonic entity, bound by an ancient pact, begins to exert its influence over Nyanya. The entity, known as the Lurker in the Abyss, seeks to fulfill its dark pact by sowing discord and chaos among the villagers. The Lurker's presence is marked by a series of disturbing events. Villagers experience horrific visions and nightmares, and inexplicable accidents and tragedies occur with increasing frequency. The entity's influence corrupts the village's very essence, turning it into a breeding ground for fear and despair. Zola and Nia investigate the source of the demonic influence and discover that the Lurker's pact was made centuries ago by a long-forgotten ancestor of the village. The pact was meant to grant power and prosperity in exchange for the eventual sacrifice of the village's soul. To break the pact, Zola and Nia must uncover the details of the original agreement and find a way to nullify it. Their search leads them to an ancient, hidden library where they find records of the pact and the dark magic that sustains it. The library is a place of profound darkness, filled with forbidden texts and cursed relics. The Laka's influence manifests as a series of malevolent tests and trials designed to break Zola and Nia's spirits. The entity uses dark magic to create nightmarish scenarios that test their resolve and push them to the brink of madness. The tests are both physical and psychological, as the Laka seeks to exploit their deepest fears and insecurities. In the climactic confrontation, Zola and Nia face the Laka in a realm of pure darkness where the boundaries between reality and nightmare are blurred. The battle is intense and harrowing as they fight to break the demonic pact and banish the entity from the village. The ending is with a dramatic resolution as the pact is broken and the Laka is banished. However, the village is left with a profound sense of unease, knowing that the darkness that has plagued them is not easily vanquished.